Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We now look at the Mangala Charana. So we need to revise or repeat this every time so that it gets uh, memorized for us. So, what are we saying? Sukha Santana Sithyartham Natva Brahmachyutarchitam Gauri Vinayakopetam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. So we are praying to Lord Shankara, who is present along with Gauri and Vinayaka. So we are basically praying to the whole Shiva Parivara. Now, okay, we move to the Tika and the Mula for verse number 18. We have covered till verse number 17, or at least very briefly we have looked at 17. So, what did we cover till now? We have discussed a little bit about Vritta. We have discussed about what the categories of Vritta are. So, suppose, let me just represent this in a more diagrammatic way, if possible. So, suppose there is a particular verse which can be divided into four equal halves. Okay, we're dividing the verse into four equal halves. How can we do this? One example is uh, Dharma Kshetre. This is the first verse of the Gita. Okay, so Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. So Dharma Kshetre, this we write Dharma. I'm just putting a dot here to indicate that this is a full word. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. This is the first charana, and then we add Samavetaha. Samavetaha Yuyutsavaha. Samavetaha Yuyutsavaha. Mamakaha Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva Pandavaschaiva Kimakuruvata Sanjaya. So now Kim, and I'm just putting a dot to indicate the full word, Kim, and then Sanjaya, another dot. So what is happening? You have divided the verse into four equal halves, or at least four halves, or rather four parts, not halves. Half, if I say that, that's the wrong thing to say. Four parts. Now, all of these parts are called as the charanas or padas. So, one word that we use in this book, and particularly in this tika, you will see the usage of the word uh, pada, but pada and charana are same. So, charana or pada is also called as a section. It's a section. Now, okay. So, what was Vritta? We are just doing a Simhavalokana of whatever was covered before this. So, what is a Vritta and what is a Jati? These are the two terms that come in the Sahitya literature. So, Vritta and Jati. So, what is Vritta? What is Vritta is our first prashna. So, Vritta is that in which you decide the chandas based on the ganas, the presence of the ganas in the different padas. And then this Vritta can be of multiple types. What are the types of vrittas that can be there? Three. Samavritta. So all the four charanas have the same number of Varanas. Have the same number of Varanas. That is Samavritta. So, or rather, I could say Lakshma or Lakshma. What is Lakshma or Lakshana? The Ganas. So, suppose the first pada has Ragana and Jagana. Second one should also have Ragana and Jagana, and so on. So you can only, so all the padas should have the same ganas. And that will also indicate the same number of varnas or the same ucharana time, etc. Probably. So obviously there could be a few uh, misses, a few uh, very minor deviations from the original chanda structure that was to be followed. But then if it is minor, we say that okay, the shloka broadly follows this particular chanda. Now, how do we then decide on the Gana? We have also discussed this, but even before we discuss about the Gana, there is one more interesting thing that we need to know. How do we, I mean, so Ganas are made by Laghu and Guru Varanas. Ganas are made by Laghu and Guru Varanas. This is the categorization that we do. Now, what is a Laghu Varna? A, E, U, and R and Lr. And what is Dirgha and what is Guru Varna or Guru Swara? We should say Swara. Be very careful about it. Swara is the word. Why Swara? So I will just give you an example of how Swara works. So Swaras are of three types generally, of which there are two that are very popular and used. I mean, uh, so uh, let me give you an example. It becomes much more easy to see that way. I mean, this becomes problematic if we don't look at an example. So suppose Agni Milre Purohitam. Now the moment I am saying this, the moment I'm or I can just say Agnimide Purohitam. When I say Agnimide Purohitam, what is happening? I am raising my voice up and down, right? So we have Uddat, Anuddat, and Swarita uh, Swaras. We call these as the Swaras. So you could have said a plain Agli Mide Purohitam, but you are not doing that. You are maintaining a particular structure in the swara. Agni Mide. So there is a Agni, Ni goes down, and then Purohitam. So again, there is Puro, Ro goes up, and so on. It will never be Purohitam. This will not happen. Purohitam. This will go. So the point is you are maintaining the pitch also. Okay, so we call this as the swara, the swara. So you have to be careful about the pitch. So there are three kinds of swaras: Vrit, uh, Uddatta, Anudatta, and Swarita. In the same way, so so it also has an impact on the rhythm of the verse or the mantra or shloka, right? Now, one more thing that impacts the rhythm of the shloka is this Gana, or is this Laghu and Guru swaras. We are calling, you always need to take this into note, that we have two broader categories, right? Swara and Vyanjana. Swara and Vyanjana. Now, Vyanjana is a consonant, right? Vyanjana is a consonant. Ka, kha, ga, gha, anga, and so on. And we know from Sanskrita that you can never pronounce this ka in isolation. It is written as k, or we always, because you cannot pronounce this, we can either add a ak or a ik when you write this ka halanta. Okay, so you need it to be associated with something, and that has to be a vowel. That has to be a swara. What could it be? A, e, etc. So ka. This is ka. This ak and a is ka. Now this is one aspect. The other is, okay, fine. There is one more thing that would be important to bring rhythm. That is, there is a Uchcharana Vyavadhana, or not even Uchcharana Vyavadhana, there is an Uchcharana Kala difference between Ka and Ka. Ka. So, Ka and Ka. In fact, I mean, this also reminds me of something that we all do in music, and you would know this better, and probably also students of music. We generally write sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa. We write like this. Now, I remember this from my childhood, that there was a person who used to write sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa like this, but she would do the uchcharan as sa. The moment you do this sa uchcharana, sa re ga ma, like that, what happens is that you are reducing the uchcharana kala of the sargam. You are reducing that uchcharana kala of the saptak rather. Then what is happening? In that case, you are not holding on to the rhythm for a longer time. That has a very different impact than holding it on for a longer duration. The duration just becomes half. Just becomes half if you replace sa with sa and ga with ga. Re fortunately does not have that problem, because ekara we know, a, I, o are dirgha. We have discussed this. A, I, O are dirgha. In the same way, A, E, U, R, and L, all of these things are dirgha. And one more thing which is considered as dirgha in our analysis of chandas is, after a laghu varna, if, or laghu swara, if we get a anuswara, a vyanjana, a samyukta vyanjana, something like an a had come at the end of the pada, and after that it begins with a thing like vya. This is samyukta vyanjana, right? So this a will now be considered as guru instead of laghu. So that's the other thing. Then, based on whether this laghu comes at the end of the pada or not, it can be optionally considered as a guru varana, or guru swara, I should say. Now, this is one thing. Then how do we create these ganas? We know that there is a chinha for Laghu Varna. The chinha for Laghu Varna is this Raju Rekha, right? And the chinha for the Guru Varna is this Vakra Rekha. There are these two chinhas that we are going to use. So Laghu Varna and Guru Varna have these two chinhas. Now, what are the Gana Parichayas? I have given this verse before as well, but let me just repeat it again. मस्त्रिगुरुस्त्रिलघुश्च नकारो भादिगुरुः पुनराधिलघुर्यः जो गुरुमध्यगतो रत्नमध्यः सोऽन्तः गुरुः कथितोऽन्तलघुस्तः. What does this mean? I mean, very broadly, this is just giving me the lakshanas. So, magana, magana is all laghus, or sorry, all gurus. Nagana is all laghu. And so on. So we have seen this, and I will recall this concept again and again and go back to this verse that I just said and tell you what exactly needs to be done from verse number 18 of the Prathama Adhyaya. So verse number 16 we have seen. Now verse number 18. So what's the role of this Vritta? Vritta will take care of the Ucharana Kala. Will take care of the Ucharana Kala. And we have now only seen that, for example, when we even say a sargam, over there if you say sa instead of sa and ma instead of ma, that impacts the amount of time for which you are holding on to a swara, right? So that's one thing. I mean, people can always argue that, okay, no, I can also say like this. Fine, you can do that. But then the point is that that is not valid from a Vyakarana perspective. From a Vyakarana perspective, we are supposed to maintain the Ucharana Kala. We're supposed to maintain that. In fact, we do that even in music. If somebody goes and listens to Bhaja Govindam, M.S. Subbulakshmi's rendition, what do we do over there? Deyam Deena Janaya cha Vittam. She sings it like that. Deena Janaya cha Vittam. So her Deena, the, and you have a Dirgha Ikara. So the Ucharana Kala is double than that of Ja, of Janaya. Deyam Deena Janaya cha. Ja is, and then Na. Na again has double the Ucharana time of Ja. So even in music, in some sense, we try to preserve these structures sometimes, at least. So okay, so now we move on to, okay, so we stopped at this verse 17. Idea was Arabhya ekaksharat padadehe, sorry, आरभ्य एकाक्षरात् पादात् एकाक्षर वर्धितैः पृथक् छन्दो भवेत् पादैः यावत् षड्विंशति गतम्. So what is happening? Arabhya ekaksharat. So how are these vritta type chandas going to get created, or vritta chanda shlokas are going to get created? They will start with one akshara pada. They will move on to a two akshara pada. Then they will move on to a three akshara pada. Each pada will contain three akshara, and so on till 26 aksharas. Then the number of aksharas in all padas of a 26 akshara shloka would be 26 times 4, that is 104. So, okay. And tavat prathak bhinnam chando bhavet. All of these will be having different chandas. That is the other thing. Now, another thing that is being said is, if you look at the Hindi व्याख्या, they are saying यह श्लोक समवृत्त के भेदों का वर्णन करता है. So what is happening over here is that 26 is the max number of letters in each pada, right? 26, 26, 26 and 26. Now, in Samavritta, we know that all of the padas will have the same types of ganas. So there is no variation in 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, and so on. There is no pairwise variation in any of those, right? Now, if that is the case, then that is Samavritta. But suppose, I'm just giving you a question now, that suppose we did have a case where, okay, this shloka actually also applied to the Ardha Samavrittas. In that case, uh, what would be the possible I mean, what would be the possible combinations uh, for or what would be the possible ways in which we could have these chandas? So now what I know is all of these ganas have, or sorry, all of these padas have the same types of ganas. So there is no variation. But suppose 1 and 3, suppose 1 and 3 and 2 and 4, that is how Samavritta works, right? 1 and 3 will have the same types of ganas, and 2 and 4 will have the same types of ganas. So if that was the case, then what combinations are possible in terms of chandas? That's the question. So how do we address this? I mean, this is just a mathematical question, but yeah, there is some combinatorics application, and I feel we need to appreciate that idea. So this is uh, 2. This is these are another two things. Now, one possibility is that these two, 1 and 3, can get the same ganas, same types of ganas, and 2 and 4 can get another set of ganas, or vice versa, right? Or vice versa. So you have two possibilities over here. So a Vishama Vritta, if at all this verse had applied to a sorry to an Ardha Samavritta. So for an Ardha Samavritta, you would have had uh, how many possibilities? 26 types of chandas, and 26 times 2, right? 26 times 2. This could be a possibility. In the same way, how would it work for Vishama Vritta? It would just become 26 times 4. We just erase this. Okay. Now we move on to the next verse. We have spent quite some time recapping because we started. We are continuing after some reasonable amount of time, so it was good to revise. Now, tadurdhvam चण्डवृष्ट्यादिदण्डकाः परिकीर्तिताः शेषं गाथादिस्त्रिभिः षड्भिः चरणैः च उपलक्षिताः. What is happening here? तदूर्ध्वम, अगर beyond that, तदूर्ध्वम, कस्मात् ऊर्ध्वम, Kasmat urdhvam, kiske urdhva? Beyond what? Beyond the verse or the chanda where you have more than 20, you have 26 aksharas or 26 swaras in each of the pada. So beyond that, if you have सप्तविंशति अक्षर सप्तविंशति आदि अक्षरपादाः यदि भवन्ति तदा ते चण्ड वृष्टि आदि अभिधानाः दण्डकाः परिकीर्तिताः. So, if you have 27 aksharas in each charana, each pada, then you say that okay, this is called as a dandaka. And then anything beyond that is also called as a dandaka, but then it is considered as some type of dandaka. Some type of dandaka. So, what is that? Chanda, Vrishti, Arnava, Ityadi. These are the broader, I mean, these are the names of those Dandakas. Shesham, Ebhyoho, Vrittebhyoho, Anyaha, Tribihi, Shadbihi, Charanaihi, Upalakshitaha, Samyutaha, Gathaha, Bhavanti. So, what is being said that beyond this, beyond this, or rather, apart from these vrittas that we have discussed, there are some other vrittas also, which interestingly have sometimes six charanas or six padas, or sometimes uh, three padas, and so on. And these are called as gathas. So, that is also one more chanda. So Dandaka. Dandaka is a very famous chanda, also useful for doing complex or long poetry. So we have a text called as Shyamala Dandakam. Shyamala Dandakam. Shyamala Dandakam is a text by Kalidasa. By Kalidasa. So what is Kalidasa doing over there? Kalidasa is writing this for Saraswati, some form of Saraswati. Shyamala Dandakam. You can go and see this on maybe YouTube. There are some recordings on that. Shyamala Dandakam. Okay. Any prashnaha? कोऽपि प्रश्नः अस्ति वा?
Uh, no, no questions, but I have only one question. I'm not question actually. You are telling that okay, usually we recite this slokas in a proper rhythm.
Mhm.
So is that I mean, how that rhythm is related to this chanda? I mean, can you please explain that
Okay, perfect.
with
So
with an
that could be
example?
elucidated better if we had looked at any verse, but let me just take a verse. So what would be a good verse to look at? Let me think.
Could be Purusha Shukta if
Purusha
you're.
Sukta is a Vaidika chanda, and Vaidika
Hmm.
chanda work in a bit different way compared to the Laukika chanda. So we are not discussing any Vaidika chanda, but okay, fine. Let me just take
Okay,
an
how
example.
these two, okay,
But
okay,
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 let me
sorry,
just
sorry to
do it.
interrupt you again.
Let
How these two things are different, and I'm just I just want to know about the pitch change. When the pitch change happen, how do you know when you have to change the pitch? The proper Vaidika Chanda. That's what I am
Okay, good.
asking you.
Yeah, so now it gives me a clearer vision of the question. So suppose there are two ways in which you do that. First is there are chinhas. So for example, I'm just if you ever see a person chanting, you will see Vedic chanting per se. You will see that the person. So suppose these are the four fingers, and then the other finger is like this. So and the hand basically goes like this. So this is the hand of the person, right? So so they do this, and then they also now lift it up, the hand. So after a certain point of time, they also just lift up the hands. So you know that okay, this is Udatta when you keep it down, this is Anudatta, and then Swarita you can just move it this way. So move it horizontally. So this is the way it is done in a traditional setup where you don't use texts. So if you ever look at, there was this famous news on the Dandakrama Parayana, right? So these are mnemonic techniques by which you preserve all these ucharanas also. It's not good enough to just memorize the text. You also have to memorize this. But for the common user, what do we do? If you go and see, there is this very interesting or very useful book that we all use called as Mantra Pushpam. I think you are aware of this Mantra Pushpam.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, Mantra Pushpam,
Our
if you
team
go,
also has a version of it.
that is the I'm talking about that edition itself. There is no other independent text called as Mantra Pushpam. Mantra
Oh,
Pushpam is
my
RKM's
bad.
own compilation. So
Ah.
so if you look at Mantra Pushpam, if you look at the Taittiriya Upanishad or any of the Purusha Suktas, you will see that uh, so they write suppose pu, and then they
Hmm.
will put a dash here, or they will put a dash here, something like this. So the moment you put these marks, you know, okay, this is Udatta or Anudatta or Swarita. So in a text format, this is how you preserve the sound. So that's one thing which is for the pitch. Now, pitch does not become very important for our case in the Laukika setup. In the Laukika setup, uh, we don't really go with Uddata, Anuddata, or Swarita Pathas. Of the, say for example, Gita, nobody will do Dharma Kshetre, Kuru Kshetre. Nobody does that, right? So, and there is no notation also given for preserving the Gita Parayana pattern or system. There is no notation that is given for that. So, what does that mean? That essentially conveys this idea to us that Laukika Samskrita probably does not have to worry much about the swaras in the Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita sense, but you still have to worry about the Matra Kala. Matra Kala. So in Navya Nyaya, we have this concept of Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi. We have these three concepts: Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi. What do these things mean? These mean that there are three components necessary for the sentence to be meaningful. What are those? Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi. So suppose I say Balaka, suppose I say Pathati. Your Akanksha, your expectation from that sentence would be Kaf Pathati or Ka Pathati, right? Who is studying? And then I will say Ramav Pathati, Rama Pathati, or Rama Pathati, like that, right? So other thing is yogyata and sannidhi. The sentence, the words in the sentence should have some connection, some logical connection between them. The other most important thing for us is sannidhi. Sannidhi is the ucharana time between the two uh, vakyas, or rather two padas, should not be too much. So if you say uh, Ramaha today and Pathati 10 days later, so will I be able to construct a meaningful inter or sentence out of this? No, because I don't know. I mean, you probably have said Rama today, and then other part of the sentence you just said in your mind, and then you said Pathati 10 days later. So you must have said the karta of that Pathati in your mind. I could assume that, right? So what it means is that there should not be unnecessary gap between the ucharanas. And what delays these ucharanas? The matras, whether it's dvimatra or ekamatra, that is, whether it takes double the time in ucharana or just half the time in ucharana, those things will determine. Those things will also be useful for giving me the yogyata of the sentence. Of the sentence. Now, this becomes problematic even sometimes from a music perspective. So if you think it from a strict Nyaya perspective, so suppose people do this Raga Vistara, right? People do Raga Vistara, and then they will keep repeating a particular portion of the uh, Bandish many times on loop, many times on loop. But then does that, so then what happens? It loses Akanksha, it also loses Sannidhi that way. So if you want, so you are just reveling in the sound thereafter, right? So that's one thing. Unless you already know the bandish yourself, and then you know, okay, fine, Pandit ji or Ustad ji is singing, and then it will take. It's okay if he's just doing the vistara and taking time to go to the second line. I know what the second line is in my mind, and then whenever he's saying "Tum hama sanajina bolo piyarava," I know the next line, and then automatically in my mind I get transported, or I get that bhava or the rasanubhuti, right? So that's a assumption on the part of the listener in that case, that okay, the listener knows, but then that problem would arise over there. This is not to critique or criticize classical singing or the idea of raga vistara or whatever. The idea here is just that we appreciate that concept of akanksha and sannidhi at least. And in the same way, when you were talking about we were talking about this concept of chanda. So what happens now? Suppose I say dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha. So suppose I don't do this. So suppose I say dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha, like this. Suppose I go like this. So I have my ucharana kala has gone haywire basically. So dirgha and hrasva, and I've mismatched their ucharanas, right? So then what is happening? In that case, you are basically uh, breaking the rhythm in which this Gita shloka has to be sung. So suppose I do it this way for the first part, and then I say Mama Kaha Pandavaschaiva. So you cannot sing this anyway, right? So what is Gita? Gita is Bhagavata Gita, Bhagavad Gita, Tritiya Tatpurusha Samasa, right? Bhagavata Ya Gita, Sa Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavaner Dara, or rather by the Lord, one that has been sung by the Lord is Bhagavad Gita. So it has to be sung in some sense, right? But that musical quality is also lost. So what does the chanda do in that case? Now coming to another part of your question. So when you have the chanda, given. So at least for the Vritta Chandas, we can say, we will go to the other part later, the Jati Chandas. So Vritta Chanda, what will it do? Vritta Chandas will take care of the fact that suppose there is a Gana, there is a Ra Gana or there is a Ja Gana. So, for example, we did look at the Ja Gana and Ma Gana today, right? So, what was Ma Gana? Guru, 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 right? This Guru, Guru, Guru. And suppose I do have a chanda like this. Guru, 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 and another Guru, Guru, Guru. So the Ucharana Kala for these part of the first charana, I mean this part, not this part, this first charana is say 12 seconds or say 6 seconds, whatever. If it's a samavritta, then the other part would also have magana and magana. So guru, 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 guru. In the same way, the second half of the words will also have magana, 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 magana. Now what will happen? In that case, you are maintaining a uniformity in the ucharana kala of the chanda. Now you can say that in that case that's good, but what if all of them differ? What if all of them differ? In that case also, in that case also, there are some niyamas. What are the niyamas? Okay, the niyamas are this, that fine, you could have had multiple combinations. We are just taking a few. So Vishama Vritta. So suppose this is the first charana, Magana Magana. The next charana could be Magana Jagana. The third charana could be Jagana Ragana, and the fourth charana could be Ragana Ragana. So suppose this is the Vishama Vritta. Suppose in that case the Ucharana timings would change, right? But then uh, the rule over there is that okay, fine, now the Ucharana timings have changed, but still, hey, let us figure out a way in which we can sing this, we can do a patha of this, but let us not get very risky, very adventurous about this. Let us have a fixed number of Vishamavrittas and only a fixed number of Samavrittas. You can have n number of permutation combinations, but let us fix it at something. And that okay, these are the only possible Vishamavritta Chandas. These are the only possible Samavritta Chandas. So that way there is a limitation that you can uh, bring in over there. So that's one thing. So yes, in that sense, the musical quality, the rhythm, and other things are taken care of by the chanda. And there are ways in which the gayana is also done. So gayanam for all of these chandas. In fact, very interestingly, for most of these chandas, we can discuss this offline. Most of these chandas also are associated with some raga or ragini. Now, if you go too much, if you deviate a little bit or not little bit, a lot more from a given chanda, which may be a Vishamavritta also, in that case it will not even fit in the raga or the ragini to be put into music. So that's also one reason why it has been. So it's not some committee of kavis who came and sat and then said, okay, fine, this far and no further. This is the only number of chandas. It is also to be connected with music and then put into rhythm and then seen. People may say that, okay, fine, music is not everybody's forte. But in that case, people who don't sing, then how do they do the patha of it? In that case also you can do a rhythmic patha. The rhythm is still not lost. If you don't want to sing and base it on a raga ragini, you can still at least have the rhythm over there. So that's also a important caveat in music, right? We need to have the sura and the tala. All of these things make a good piece of music. So people generally don't. Now coming to the Vaidika part, yeah. So let me just again go back to the Vaidika part. Now Veda, where is music in Veda? That's the question. Maybe let me ask a question. I have a habit of asking a question to students. So suppose I say that music emanates from the Veda. In that case, what would that Veda be?
Uh, I mean, God Himself.
No, no, Veda, I said. So Veda, uh, so we have, if you go back and see any of our music theory books, the theory books, they will all attribute this to the Sama Veda, which is why in the Yajna, in the Vaidika Yajna, you have Hota, Udgata, Adhvaryu, and Brahma. These four
Okay.
people participating in the yajna. Now, amongst them, Udgata is the Gayaka of the yajna. He has to sing, and
Oh,
these things are called as Stobha. They don't have a. By the way, they don't always mean something. So some parts of Samagayana are meaningful. Some parts of Samagayana are stobha. So they will say ha, oo, ha, like this. They will make these musical sounds, and you will
oh,
know that okay, fine, this is Samagayana going. This is stobha that they are singing. So these will be fillers between the yajna. So sometimes these people have to sing, and it is not some random place where they will just go and sing. So it has to be very well coordinated. They just cannot, in the middle of some ahuti going on, they cannot go and say ha oo ha. They will have to basically, it has to be very well coordinated. So who will see whether this is getting coordinated well with the other two people? So Hota and Udgata. Hota is from the Rig Veda and Adhvaryu is from the Yajur Veda. And there is Brahma. The Brahma of the Yajna is the person who is an expert in all the four Vedas. So he is supposed to basically uh, take care or to ensure that the coordination remains well between all these people. So some in some way in today's context when we don't have too many of Vaidika Yaga Yajnas, in some ways we can think of it as the Tantra Dharaka of the puja.
acha.
He's supposed to do that essentially.
One who chants the mantras. He
So
is not actually performing the things,
huh,
uh, but they are sitting just beside the Purohita and
hmm.
chanting the mantras, right?
Chanting the mantras. So he's chanting the mantras. That's one. The other thing is he's also helping or aiding in the puja by making
Oh,
sure proper coordination, right? So proper coordination happens with this tantra dharaka. He will say to the purohita, now phala has to be uh, offered to the devi and so on. So that coordination is being done by this fellow.
okay, but in Vaidikya Yogya, mane,
Hmm.
this people, they cannot offer things. I mean, they cannot instruct the Purohit to do that, right? They are keeping the tal with their hands, as you told
No, no,
in the.
that is different. That is for the people who will be doing the patha of the mantra. That is done by, I mean, so for example, Purusha Sukta Patha. You don't need a
Okay.
Udgata, Adhvaryu, Brahma and all that, right? You can still. So this is just a mnemonic technique that everybody is supposed to know. Whoever has studied the Vedas, they are supposed to
Oh,
know
acha.
that.
So
Ha ha.
it's for the studying purpose, but they do not do it while
No,
performing.
no, they do it while performing. The people who are reciting the mantras, the Brahma of the Yajna, the
Oh, acha.
Brahma of the
He.
Yajna.
Okay,
No,
okay.
he is
My
the
bad.
coordinator. So he is just coordinating. So that way, I mean that's also true for our Tantra Dharaka. He's just coordinating. He's also reciting the mantra per se. I mean, it's not that he's not reciting, but one part of the Tantra Dharaka is to make sure that the right number of flowers are offered to the god. the right number of phalas are offered to the god. So in that way, yeah, the Brahma and the Tantradharaka are supposed to know the puja paddhati and the yagnya paddhati respectively perfectly. So they need to have good knowledge of that. So we have spent some time in this digression today, but anyway, we have made some progress also. We have looked at the 18th verse, and then probably I will just complete the other verses in the next week. This is a smaller part, it is a very mechanical part. We will just complete this part in the next patha and then move on to the Dvitiya Adhyaya. We'll move on to the Dvitiya Adhyaya. So, Matra Vrittadhikaraha. We'll move there. So, with this, I end the Patha today. We again have to basically pray to Bhagwan Shiva over here. So we say Sukha Santana Siddhyartham Natva Brahmachyutarchitam Gauri Vinayakopetam Shankara Loka Shankaram Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shri Krishnarpitamastu.